And welcome back, everybody. Hands on Apologetics. We were chatting with Brian Topham, and you got an interesting topic. It's, how should we live if we believe hell is real? And, I like the stream of thought you were on right before the break, Brian, because that should inform your decision-making process. And that's something that occurred to me several years ago. I was watching a program. I was thinking, does this program really make me a better person? Does it bring me closer to God? Or is it, just something to waste time or maybe even expose me to things that, I shouldn't even be thinking about? And so I decided, I'm going to cut it out because I'm going to cut out anything that doesn't improve me and improve my walk with God. And, but that's not a decision process that a lot of Catholics make.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, it's difficult, right? Because then you get into things like, okay, like I don't watch football anymore because I can't with the commercials they have in between the plays, right? Like if I'm sitting there with my kid and there's a half naked girl dancing on my screen because of a Budweiser commercial, I don't want my sons looking at that, and just the constant messaging you're seeing there. And it's hard because when we start doing this, right, we start separating ourselves. We're really separating ourselves culturally from people, right? Because then you can't have those water cooler conversations of, hey, did you catch the game last night? No, I didn't. Hey, have you watched that? Even though I have watched the first 3 seasons of Stranger Things, but I'm not watching the 4th. Have you watched Stranger Things? And it's like now you're starting to not engage in the cultural. It's not, I don't even the right word for that. You're not engaging the way other people are. And so now you're different, and we don't like being different, even though we're called to be different. It's something we don't like. And it's a very difficult thing for us to grasp.
Yeah. And, that hurts evangelism in a way because you need to, the most effective evangelism is where you can truly be somebody's friend and evangelize them, because you want the best for them as their friend. But it's hard to be a friend if you got pretty much nothing in common because, they're engaging the world and you're not.
And it is a fine line. And I think that this is a great segment to kind of, I want to talk about that letter from beyond for a minute. So,
okay.
Because what it is, it's this nun, Sister Claire, and she had a friend named Annie, and they were friends when they were younger before she entered her vocation. And after Annie got married, she never saw her again. And evidently they found this in her diary after she passed away. And you can Google it and read the whole letter. It's not short. So I'll just kind of briefly summarize it. But it's this fascinating letter where she read it in her dream and then woke up and wrote all this down. And it starts off with Claire. Do not pray for me. I am damned. As I tell you this and relate to you certain circumstances and details about my condemnation. And she goes on to talk about how everyone here hates everything. We hate the church. We hate people that go to mass. We hate those words themselves. And I wish that I could be annihilated because I'm here being tortured forever. But what the letter ends up detailing is all of these points within their relationships where Sister Claire is trying to guide her back to Christ. And so it's all of these little, and this is how you befriend people, right? This is why we interact with the world. It's, you did this at this one time and said, hey, why don't you come to mass with me? Hey, have you prayed about that? And she even goes on in the letter to say the day she died, I guess she died in a car accident. The day she died, she had it on her heart to go to mass. And this immediately threw me to the, John 44, no one can come to me unless drawn by the Father. And she says that was God trying to call me back before my death. And so even though we're we're living in this world, Christ and God they're still going to be calling to us, even if we're sinning. They're not giving up on us. And I think that as Catholics in befriending other people, always constantly being a word of encouragement and saying, hey, why don't you come to Mass with me? Have you thought about this? And have you prayed for this? I'll pray for you. Is just a great way to start bridging that. And you can see that this tormented this woman that died, that she missed all these opportunities and now she's damned for eternity.
Yeah, absolutely. That it's, we could be a bright light in just, in some ways, maybe just in being so different, that sometimes can raise curiosity as to, why don't you watch football? You used to watch football, and you could say, hey, this is why, and you could give words of encouragement, and things like that. And you're right, because God's constantly beckoning, right? People. And I think what happens is the culture kind of drowns that out, where it's easier and easier to suppress or, ignore that constant call back to God.
Yeah. And excuse me, there's scriptures full of that, where even all throughout John, and Christ is constantly saying, I'm not leaving you. I think what is it? In John 15, he says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments, and I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate. This is when he's talking about Pentecost, right? And this Spirit of truth, which no one likes truth anymore in the world, this Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive because it never sees him nor knows him. You will know him because he abides with you and will be in you. And it goes on right after that, and I didn't copy that verse down, but he says, I'm not going to abandon you. I'm with you. And I just love that. He's with us, even when we're sinning, even when we're trying to ignore him. But if we're constantly, as Catholics, and we're talking apologetics and everything with other people, have that mindset that this might be that moment when somebody's called back. You might say something, and 5 years from now, they'll remember that conversation and go, I wonder what he meant by that. And it might be the one phrase or sentence or something that you said that draws somebody back to the church and their soul's saved, because we're just different.
Yeah, it's funny how God can use, offhanded comments or, comments they make on purpose that, they might not be able to hear the words at that moment, but by God's grace, sometime later on when they are ready, like he'll call to mind that either the things you did or the things you said, and that could encourage a person. So, yeah, that's really important, because I always stress this on the show with defending and explaining the faith. We're just in sales. We're not management, right? We're there to be faithful, but God converts the hearts, not us.
Right.
And yeah, so we need to answer that call.
Yeah. And I think when we're talking apologetics and our motives behind it, I mean, sometimes it is an argument of right or wrong, right? I mean, there's some definite topics where you can be like, you're dead wrong. Like, I'm sorry, that's just not right. But even if we're in that topic, like say, innocence of life, right? The importance of life. You still need to have an empathetic heart and feel sorry for those people, because they're not understanding what's the grace of God. Right. And have empathy towards them. And I think that's hard for me sometimes. Right. And I think I talked about it last time with the comment section, engaging sometimes. I'm like, just typing on my keyboard, in anger. I'm like, nope. Got to delete that. It's difficult for us. But I think when we're in this sphere of spreading the gospel and talking, we need to be empathetic, because these people are hurting that don't have Christ. They really are. And they don't know it, but they are.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that should give us the motivation to step out of our comfort zones and say things where we normally wouldn't say, and do things that we wouldn't normally do because, when you see somebody who's starving and that that spiritually they're starving, they could be satiated by Christ, knowing Christ. We should be moved with pity for them. And, it's just out of charity that we share whatever we have with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you have to work on that. And I think that comes back to pride, right? Like I definitely suffer from that, right? I can be very prideful. But I think to be empathetic and to people, you have to surrender to Christ, and it's not about you, it's about Christ, and it's about saving souls. And what can you do today to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you need to do it like day to day, decision by decision too. I mean, it really does break down to, what you wear even, if you're going to wear something that could be in case somebody's sin or whatever. I mean, it really does come down to that.
I literally had that conversation with my wife yesterday. We were talking about that. So okay, am I going to cause somebody to fall into sin with clothes I'm wearing, or that, yoga pants for women, sweatpants for men, right? Like that whole culture conversation going on with younger people now. It's like, no, I don't want to engage in that because I don't want to cause somebody to sin if just by a choice I made.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
you
worse.
Have boys, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. If you had girls, that would be top of the list is, how you dress and what kind of message are you sending, things like that.
100%.
Not so much with boys though.
Yeah, they're pretty uniform, but it comes to a point, especially I'm sure I'll get in those fights later when they're in their teenage years of, you're not wearing that shirt with that vulgar image on it, right? Like it's gonna happen. I know.
Sure.
That envelope.
Sure. We're chatting with Brian Topham of Quest for Faith with Brian on YouTube. More to come, Brad.